Hi everyone, today's topic is all about the T account. In your screen right now is a T account. So this is called as a T account because it looks like a capital letter T. So this T account has two sides. The left hand side is called the debit side, and this is for the value received. And the right hand side is called the credit side, and this is for the value parted with. And on top of the T account is where the account title is written. So we have here an example of a T account. So since the account title cash is written on top of the account, so it will now become cash account. The 30,000 here at the left hand side is called the debit entry, and then the 15,000 here at the right hand side is called the credit entry. Let us assume that aside from these two entries, the 30,000 pesos debit entry and the 15,000 pesos credit entry, we also have these two another entries, the 10,000 pesos debit entry and the 5,000 pesos credit entry. So at this point, we have to total all the amounts in the debit side, and we also have to total all the amounts in the credit side. So let's start with the amounts in the debit side. So we have the first debit entry of 30,000 pesos plus the another debit entry of 10,000 pesos. So the total is 40,000 pesos. So the 40,000 pesos is known as the debit total. And the credit side, we have 15,000 pesos plus 5,000 pesos. So the total is 20,000 pesos. So this is now the credit total. So therefore, cash account has a debit total of 40,000 pesos and credit total of 20,000 pesos. 1,000 pesos debit total and 20,000 pesos credit total. So there is a difference of 20,000 pesos, and this 20,000 pesos is called account balance. The account balance is the difference between the debit total and the credit total, and this could either be debit balance, a credit balance, or in balance or closed account. Debit balance is when the debit total is greater than the credit total. There is a credit balance if the debit total is less than the credit total. And there is an in balance or closed account if the debit total is equal to the credit total. So going back in our illustration, the 20,000 pesos account balance is, of course, it's a debit balance since the total of 40,000 pesos debit total, the debit total of 40,000 pesos is greater than the credit total of 20,000 pesos. So we're going to put the 20,000 pesos debit balance here and the debit side, and don't forget the double rule. So in this illustration, we could say that the cash account has a debit balance of 20,000 pesos. Let us now move on to another illustration, and this time we have accounts payable account. So this is called accounts payable account since the accounts payable account title is written on top of the account. So here in this account, there are two debit entries. We have 25,000 pesos, and we also have another debit entry of 25,000 pesos. In the credit side, we also have two credit entries. We have 35,000 pesos and another credit entry of 20,000 pesos. So let's total separately the debit and the credit entries in the respective sides. So we'll start here in the debit side. So we have 25,000 plus 25,000. So the debit total is 15,000 pesos. And the credit side, the credit total is 55,000 pesos. So that is 35,000 pesos plus 20,000 pesos. So 50,000 pesos debit total and 55,000 pesos credit total. So therefore, there is an account balance of 5,000 pesos. And since the debit total is less than the credit total, ibig sabihin, mas malaki ang credit total kaysa debit total niya. So therefore, the 5,000 pesos account balance is a credit balance. So the 5,000 credit balance will be written here in the credit side, and don't forget for the double rule. Moving on to our last illustration, so we still have an accounts payable account. So there are two debit entries in the debit side of the accounts payable account. We have 20,000 pesos and another 20,000 pesos. In the credit side, we also have two credit entries. We have 18,000 pesos and 22,000 pesos. So let us total the amount here in the debit side and the amount in the credit side. So let's start with the debit side. 1,000 plus 20,000, so the debit total is 40,000 pesos. In the credit side, we have 18,000 plus 20,000, so the credit total is also 40,000 pesos. So the debit total here is equal to the credit total. So just put the double rule. So here in this illustration, the accounts payable account is in balance or closed.